It was said that in a little German village, during the 30s, people had their own idea of what National Socialism was. Nazism, they thought, had something to do with purity. Indeed, they even believed its most important feature to be sexual denial. And when the old women talked of this stringent demand, they would shake their troubled heads and say, "This National Socialism is a tough one. It's only the teacher who might manage it, or maybe the barber." Even though the villagers had their own idea about Nazism, they nevertheless touched on something important. Nazism's dream of creating, through purity and sacrifice, a more beautiful world. The Nazi gospel warns of a world about to collapse, an eternal twilight that threatens to engulf the earth. The Nazis claimed to have discovered the source of this threat and took it upon themselves to eradicate it. Purified and preserved from decay, a new Germany would arise, mightier and more beautiful than ever before. Germany celebrates German Arts Day in Munich, 1939. It is the Third Reich's last major art exhibit. Within 6 weeks, the Second World War would commence. Yes, this government, half of which consists of men who once aspired to serve the arts, is conscious of the artist's role as an intermediary, declares Hans Friedrich Munk, author and president of the Reich's Chamber of Literature. He continues, "This government, born out of the opposition to rationalism, knows the people's inner longings, their boundless dreams, to which only the artist can give form." Though this claim may be hyperbole, it is not entirely groundless. Failed artists were characteristic of the leadership of the Third Reich. Several of the men nearest Hitler had made serious artistic endeavors. Goebbels, for one, who had written a novel as well as poetry and plays. Or Rosenberg, the party ideologist who had dabbled in painting and entertained literary ambitions. Or von Schirach, Hitler's youth leader, who was considered one of the Reich's foremost poets. And Hitler himself, a failed painter who dreamt of being an architect. He never abandoned the dream. His artistic efforts extended into the 1920s. Pedantically drawn watercolors in the style of postcards. "Oh, how I'd love to stay here working with art," he declares from his retreat shortly before war breaks out. He's an artist, not a politician. And as soon as the war is over, he will retire and devote himself to art. At 18, Hitler had unsuccessfully applied to the Academy of Art in Vienna. Refusal was a hard blow, but he hid his disappointment. Instead of returning to his home in Linz, he remained in Vienna. He drifts around Vienna, goes to the opera, paints a little, Occasionally, he devotes himself to some far-fetched artistic project. He and his childhood friend, August Kubitschek, make an amateurish effort based on an idea that Richard Wagner abandoned, to write an opera together. 3 years earlier, he and Kubitschek have had a decisive opera experience, and at the theater in Linz, they have seen Wagner's opera Rienzi. The opera is set in medieval Rome. Rienzi, the people's spokesman, rises against the aristocracy. He wants to turn the clock back 15 centuries and re-establish the Roman Republic of antiquity. In that spirit, he lets himself be made tribune of the people. But Rienzi falls victim to a conspiracy. He fights his last battle in the capital as it crashes, burning around him. Hitler is deeply moved by Rienzi. Overwhelmed, he outlines for Kubitschek his plans for his own future and that of his people. Later he would say, "It was in that hour it all began." This experience cemented 3 fixations in Hitler that would never lose their grip on him. His fixations on Linz, his home city, on antiquity, and on Wagner. Whoever would understand Nazism must first know Wagner, said Hitler. And indeed, Wagner occupied a special place in Hitler's imagination. Wagner's political tracts were early favorites of Hitler's. Already in Linz, he had fantasized over his own operas, so extravagant as to eclipse Wagner's works. It was opera's scenic possibilities that fascinated Hitler, the fantastic illusion, the flight from reality. In Wagner, he saw his idol, creative artist and politician in one person. Hitler borrowed Wagner's props, anti-Semitism, the cult of a Nordic legacy, the myth of pure blood, all gave contour to Hitler's worldview. From Wagner, too, came the notions of art as the basis of a new civilization, and the artist prince, risen from the people, who would unite life and art to herald the advent of the new state. Hitler found use for his artistic bent in political work. He created Nazi props, everything, from uniforms to flags and standards. With his own sketches and instructions, he gave the Nazi movement its form. Hitler's 1923 sketch of the party standard. The goldsmith Gar prepares from Hitler's sketches the first standard of the NSDAP. Propaganda provided the outlet for Hitler's artistic ambitions.